Today, we're going to break down the long, tangled, and honestly often misunderstood history of conflict between Iran and the United States. It's an 80-year story of friendship turned to rivalry, revolutions, and high-stakes standoffs.
So you gotta ask, right? Of all the Islamic nations in the world, why is there this intense focus on Iran? It's the central question our source material opens with. And to really get it, we can't start with today's headlines. Nope. We have to rewind the clock all the way back to World War II. Our story begins not with animosity, but with a friendship. An alliance, really. One that eventually fell apart and planted the seeds of a revolution that would change everything in the Middle East.
Okay, so picture this. World War II is raging. Iran's leader at the time, the Shah, makes a really fateful choice. He sides with Hitler. For the Allies, that was a complete non-starter. So Britain invades, forces the Shah out, and puts his 22-year-old son on the throne. And this new, young Shah, Reza Pahlavi, would become a key Western ally for decades.
And this slide, wow, it just perfectly lays out the massive culture clash at the heart of all this. On one side, you have the new Shah pushing for this very secular, very modern Iran. We're talking Western-style parties, fashion, even banning the hijab and closing religious schools. The source material even notes he turned Iran into a major alcohol exporter. But this vision created this deep, powerful backlash from religious scholars, led by a guy named Ayatollah Khomeini, who saw all of it as a corruption of Islamic values.
The Shah, backed by the West, he felt his power was absolute. He looked at Khomeini as just a nuisance, not a real threat. So he had him arrested and exiled to Iraq. He reportedly just dismissed him, saying, "This old man can't do anything to me." That was a profound miscalculation.
And that underestimation? Oh, it was a mistake of historic proportions. Because from exile, Khomeini was about to pull off a revolution that would not only topple the Shah, but basically redraw the map of global politics.
His strategy was honestly kind of genius for its time. Remember, this is way before the internet. So Khomeini used the hot tech of the day, the simple audio cassette. He recorded these powerful sermons, which were then smuggled into Iran, copied, and passed from hand to hand. It was a brilliant way to completely bypass the state-controlled media and get his revolutionary message to millions.
At the very height of his power, the Shah makes a move that the source calls his single biggest mistake. To celebrate the ancient Persian Empire, he throws one of the most over-the-top parties in history. I mean, we're talking a whole new city built in the desert, 600 limousines for guests, and food served on solid gold plates. And all this while many Iranians were really struggling. You can imagine how that looked.
Yeah, that lavish party, it just poured gasoline on the fire. It made Khomeini's message that the Shah was out of touch resonate even more. Support for the monarchy just crumbled. Seeing the writing on the wall, the Shah fled around for good. And that cleared the way for Khomeini to come home after 14 long years in exile. And his return was something else entirely. It was unlike anything the world had ever seen. A world record 7 million people flooded the streets of Tehran to welcome him back. Just try to picture that. 7 million. It showed just how completely the country had turned against the Shah.
And what happened next? Well, this was the real point of no return. Khomeini declares the Islamic Republic of Iran. For the very first time, chants of "Death to America" are echoing through the streets. Then, his followers storm the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, taking 50 Americans hostage. This kicked off the 444-day Iran hostage crisis, an event that completely severed diplomatic relations and cemented the United States as Iran's #1 enemy.
Okay, so the revolution happens. But right after that, Iran gets plunged into this brutal 8-year war with its neighbor, Iraq. And that war, where the West was backing Iraq's Saddam Hussein, convinced Iran's new leaders that to survive, they needed the ultimate insurance policy.
And that insurance policy? A nuclear weapon. The leadership basically concluded that only a nuclear bomb could stop powerful enemies like the United States and Israel from attacking them. It would guarantee the survival of their new republic. And just like that, the nuclear standoff had begun. The key piece of tech here is the centrifuge, which the source says Iran secretly got from A.Q. Khan, the father of Pakistan's bomb. It's basically a machine that spins uranium super fast. And as you can see here, it's pretty simple. Enrich it to 5%, you get fuel for a power plant. But if you keep it spinning much longer, up to 90%, well, that's how you get material for a bomb.
Now, as the U.S., having just invaded Iraq, started hinting Iran could be next, Iran's new supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, issued what's called a fatwa, a religious decree. He declared that nuclear bombs were haram, or forbidden under Islam, because they kill indiscriminately. So officially, Iran's position was clear. We have no intention of building a bomb.
But a lot of people were not buying it. Critics, including, as the source notes, Khamenei's own nephew, argued this was all just a deception. They pointed to this Islamic concept of taqiyya, which lets a believer lie to save their life or protect their community. So the claim was the fatwa was just a strategic lie to buy time while the nuclear program kept going in secret. And that right there, that fundamental mistrust, with America believing Iran is secretly building a bomb, and Iran believing America wants to destroy its government, that's what sets the stage for a decades-long cycle of conflict that is still playing out today.
America's primary weapon in this conflict hasn't been military, it's been economic. And this chart from the source material shows just how devastating U.S. sanctions have been. You can literally see the economy is growing and then, bam, a sharp collapse each time a new, stricter round of sanctions is put in place. It just craters.
I mean, the last decade has been a perfect example of this cycle of whiplash. In 2015, you get this huge breakthrough with President Obama's nuclear deal. Sanctions are lifted. But just 3 years later, President Trump yanks the U.S. out. Sanctions come roaring back, tensions explode, which leads to the U.S. killing a top Iranian general, and ultimately, the election of a hardliner in Iran.
The source also highlights Israel's role in this whole dynamic. It states that Israel has consistently worked to stop any kind of U.S.-Iran agreement. It points to claims like saying Iran is just 1 month away from a bomb, a claim that's apparently been made for 25 years, as part of a strategy to keep that hardline stance in place and make sure no diplomatic deal ever really sticks.
Which brings us right up to today. After decades of animosity, a broken friendship, a revolution, and a nuclear standoff, we are left with this one question. This cycle of provocation and mistrust is dug in so deep. But those brief moments of diplomacy have shown that, hey, another path is actually possible. So which one is it going to be? Which path will define the next chapter in this 80-year story? That remains the central and so far unanswered question.